Hello, everyone. This is Kops Office Hours. Today is August 31st. We do have a couple of things on the agenda, which is moving around very rapidly. I'm just watching what's going on. And if you do have things you would like to put on the agenda, then do feel free to add them on there. Otherwise, I suggest we just get started. First on the agenda is the Joseph Stevens talking about or discussing disk management strategy, which is fair.
With me. I've been dealing with some problems recently trying to upgrade from M4 to R5 instances. And obviously what's come up in that transition is the NVMe type disks that the R5s are using. And obviously this consistent across a number of different new instance types. And it's resulted in a few problems. The first big one was actually that partitioning of the root device is happening differently with NVMe-based devices, where rather than, so if I give a device an EBS 500 gig root on M4, it just gets that entire device. On R5, it actually partitions an 8 gigabyte partition, mounts that, and excludes the rest, which I'm guessing you've run into.
Yeah, so just to give you a bit of background on what's going on there, what happens is the AMI itself starts off as an 8 gig image. And this is sort of like general to how AWS works. The AMI has a sort of fixed size and then just gets written into the partition table. And then it's the job of the image itself to expand, to fill the space, or not fill the space as you would like to, but to fill the space. Mm-hmm. The behavior is supposed to be that it should detect the full disk size and fill up into it, but I'm guessing that whatever script, well, we run a script to do that. It's not one that I wrote. I think it's sort of part of standard Debian, I guess, if you're using that particular image. And my guess is it just hasn't been updated it hasn't been updated upstream, or we haven't taken the update into that image to do that expansion. I'm not sure whether if you were to use another image, another like OS, like Ubuntu 18.04, for example, whether it would work. And then I suppose a further question is, what should the behavior be? I presume it should still expand to use the whole space, but that does go in. I'm grateful that you put multiple topics on here, because it gets into some of the other things about like what we use, where we put all the other stuff.
Right. So and I think expanding is the expected behavior. So I updated all the way to the most recent stretch image from Kate's 1.8, because we're still running 1.8. And it's not solved there, although it did actually solve another problem that I had been having, which gets into RAID. So the particular use case I'm trying to solve for is we're running Spark and Kubernetes. And we're running it in a very particular way where we're breaking down these huge big data problems into a whole series of different schedulable tasks. And what we're ending up doing is we're hitting our cluster with hundreds, thousands of jobs very, very rapidly that are all relatively short-lived. And what it's done is it's dialed out some issues with the performance of, in particular, etcd events, which obviously has been discussed a few times. And so I've been having to recover etcd events like once a week in my cluster, and there are a few optimizations that I've managed to coerce into my installation. So I the other day managed to figure out how, using the R5D images, I could actually set up the RAID configuration at boot with the 2 local NVMe drives, which was actually fairly straightforward, and I think would be a good thing to support as a native Kops option. As it's been expressed in quite a long ticket thread, an interest in ephemeral drive support. but also supporting things like having a separate cluster of instances to run your etcd events cluster, running those on ephemeral disk, anything to optimize for this high performance use case, where you're doing things other than just running long running services.
Are you running etcd3 or etcd2?
I think we're 3.1.11 right now.
Okay, because the performance of etcd3 is supposed to be better, so that was supposed to help, and yeah, that's not great.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, there's always a limit, right? But yes.
Right.
I don't really know what to offer as way of advice or explanation. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in. I mean, we can certainly do better and start to attack them. I don't think we have a, like, I think the list that you've identified is the right list, right? That we need to, like, look at RAID, look at, I don't know if you're running out of IOPS, right? Not disk space. Or
so not disk space. I'm actually having another issue with, which is an etcd specific issue, where like over 10 minutes, I'll generate 20 gigs of snapshots and fill up a drive. I don't know if anyone's seen that before, but it's weird.
Well, I can tell you I've seen a bunch of things with etcd, and I can tell you that indeed etcd3 is a lot better. So yeah, if you can run away from etcd2, it's a lot. The events, you can tune them. I'm not sure with Kops actually, but I assume it's possible you can say to not store events at all. So if you have burst, you can just say ignore them, or have like them for 5 seconds or something like ridiculously low. And of course you can put etcd like outside of the masters, for example. I'm not sure if you already do, but it could help, at least with the load on the master nodes and this kind of stuff. So this is things you can do.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're not currently doing that. I had stumbled into that in my research, and part of what I wanted to get today was what sort of roadmap Kops might have around that, and whether I should be trying to help to drive Kops that direction, and volunteer my time to work on these different abstractions, or if I should just diverge and try to build things in a different way.
I think, I mean, it's appreciated and very welcome. I think that you are likely hitting some of there are things we can fix in Kops, but it sounds like you're also at the sort of scale where you're likely hitting some of like the just sort of Kubernetes architectural limits, right? Depending on, like, there is I don't know what the number is, but like there is a number of pods you can schedule per minute, or each pod you schedule will like have an impact on, as you say, events and all these sort of things. And you're likely hitting some of those sort of more fundamental limits. I like the idea of compacting more often. So what happens with etcd is effectively it stores everything forever. And then Kubernetes every 5 minutes, I think, sends a compact thing, which is basically like erase everything older than 5 minutes, I think. And so you could also just have a like daemon sets or something to compact those more often. I like the suggestion of not recording them at all. That's also quite good. It feels a little aggressive, but sure. I think if you, I don't know if we have like a SIG about big data type things, but it might be interesting to try to like use fewer pods if you can. I think that would certainly, like, probably the overhead of scheduling and all these things is quite high. I don't know if that's at all possible, but I definitely appreciate the issues you've raised, and it's great that to push the limits and find out where they are. And I think also I think we have a bunch of local storage which we don't even use at all today on some instance types, which would be another issue. Yeah, this is sort of a big topic that I think we could definitely do better on. I'm not entirely sure where to start, but yes.
One experiment that you might be able to run is leveraging if you use Kops to output Terraform code, you could then rejigger some of the volume mounts to leverage instance on the instance storage SSDs instead of that. That definitely an exercise for the reader, but it's an opportunity to get much higher IOPS for a given problem.
Yeah, so that's currently what I'm doing. It's workable. The problem is I basically need to be able to stamp out this same infrastructure in an automatically manageable way, like a few hundred times. And at some point, the manual tinkering becomes unworkable. So I was hoping there was a good way to build it into Kops. Like if we had a mapping of this, if you have these drives on the instance, you can add in RAID as a default argument, just pass it into your user data, and bootstrap it. It's actually like 5 lines of bash that ended up fixing the problem for me.
If you have those, I mean, I think Jason's suggestion is great in that, like, if we're able to experiment and demonstrate that something works in those 5 lines of bash and put those in an issue and file that, then that's great in terms of, like, then we know that this is a good thing to do. And I think we could definitely, like, if you put those in I guess a new issue so I don't get distracted, but yes, that would be one. And then I can, or anyone can just pick it up and like expose a new like disk strategy or something like that to give us a way to let users opt into that sort of thing. I think that would be great. It's a little complicated because we have our ongoing transition. It's a little complicated specifically for etcd because we have the ongoing transition to etcd manager, which should enable like better etcd management, in particular upgrades and in theory downgrades, but definitely upgrades are like the primary use case. But it would be great to get that in there and make sure we have it. I also took a note to like double check etcd manager from version 3 to version 3, but like sort of adoption of that. But that's sort of what I'm spending a lot of my time on personally right now, which is sort of trying to make sure etcd manager is indeed ready to go, because the plan is to turn it on by default in the next version, because it's still sort of hidden, but once we turn it on by default, it will no longer be hidden.
Gotcha.
But yeah, if you're able to file that an issue or bump an issue with those 5 lines, that would be really helpful, actually.
Cool. Yeah, I'll put that in and tag you.
Is that all of? Is that your 4 topics there, or is that or are they?
Pretty much. So it's really the overarching thing is like I'm trying to figure out how to make my cluster very performant, because I'd like to scale rapidly to 2,500 nodes and several thousand pods all at once, and that's currently not viable. We actually we played with the garbage collection and scaled it from 100 terminated nodes to the 12,500 default. And that brought down the main etcd, which wasn't great. So I'm trying to figure out where the limits are on this. And obviously the other one is like the API responsiveness, and the cluster decreases pretty rapidly as it starts hitting with a lot of the traffic.
Yes, I think like just like those sort of numbers that you're talking about, like 2,500 nodes, is definitely pushing the boundaries, and there will definitely be other things you will hit at that sort of scale, probably even at half that scale. And I don't know if you hang out in the SIG scalability group and like talk to those people about like some of the like requirements that they've had, because I know that people have run big clusters, but I think they currently end up like running with ridiculously large master nodes, for example, or very large master nodes, I should say, not
right
large, like correspondingly large master nodes. Just because otherwise, yes, your API responsiveness just isn't there. And as I understand the design, most of the data will end up being cached in the API server if you give it enough memory. So it may actually, there will be a bottleneck there as well in terms of CPU, but the writes always have to go to etcd, and yes, events, as you say, will be pretty tricky.
Gotcha. Is that in the Kube Slack, the SIG performance or scalability?
I think so. Is it or not? Opening it up. Let's see. It should be. Let's see. SIG scalability is there. Yep. I'm not sure how active it is. It used to be much more active, but certainly the people that know like how to get to that sort of scale will be in that sake, or will point you to whatever they have.
Cool.
Awesome. But yeah, do file like issues about like, especially if you have things we can do better, that's wonderful. But yes, I would definitely be aware that you are at the forefront.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe another couple of tips I can do, because now I remember when I actually had to do something similar. Run away from etcd2, because there was an old bug with BoltDB, which is the database behind the scenes, which would just, I think, start allocating a lot of memory, and it would go in a protected state where writes are not allowed anymore. I mean, this happened a bunch of times to me, and it was a bug that was there in version 2 and the early version 3, but it's fixed since quite a while now. So if you get a kind of recent version 3, this is gone, and this was a huge problem, at least for me. So when I was handling this kind of big cluster, I mean, we talk about, I don't know, 30, 40,000 pods, not nodes, but the pods were, I don't know, 2 gig of RAM each. So quite big stuff. I was essentially, I mean, the cluster alone would not survive. There was me behind the scenes trying to save etcd from dying. So this is why this was living, not because it could survive alone. So this one tip. And the other one is, if you have limits like on the API server, yes, I was running a manual compact every minute essentially. But yeah, if you have limits like on the, I mean, memory or CPU on the API server, also another trick is just remove them and let it take whatever you have. So pick a very big node for the master, remove the limits, and see when it dies. It's usually better than try to mess around with, okay, maybe I need another gig or whatever.
Gotcha.
That's actually a really good point. I think we limit our API server to only use or I think we limit everything on the master to only use a core. So in total, so we might actually be throttling pretty heavily. I don't know. That's definitely something to check, and another one that would be easier to remove.
That would explain, because I scaled the hell out of the masters and I didn't really see any corresponding actual CPU usage.
I don't recall whether we set limits or requests, but I'm gonna take a note to double check that, because that's interesting that that I think we just set requests, but I will double check that we don't have any limits set on the master components.
How would you set those limits? Because I was trying to tweak some things with, God, when I was covering etcd events and I wanted to change the existing cluster state to existing rather than new, and it was getting blown out every about 30 seconds and replaced.
So this is tricky. It's less tricky for other components. So for API server, Kube controller manager, scheduler, they are run as static manifests in etc Kubernetes manifests. For etcd itself, that sort of gets managed by Protocube, or in future etcd manager, which is basically trying to give you etcd sort of automated recovery using EBS volumes, sort of tracking where the EBS volumes go. So that's why you see that's why you see it sort of behaving like being reset, because it's sort of repairing itself. But if you want to change that, we'd have to map it in through etcd manager. But hopefully we just are only setting requests and not limits anyway. So in other words, it's sort of everyone gets a best efforts type scheduling, but I hope.
Gotcha. Cool.
Great. Yeah, and if you do find anything else, do please open issues, and that would be great if we can get high performance tuning. I mean, for most of them, we can probably do it by default. It's just if the changes are incompatible, we have to be a little bit more careful. Rafael, next.
Okay, I can go next. I'm not running etcd manager yet, and I'm not sure if it can do the trick. But the thing is, I have a couple of clusters that I have, which are with a pretty standard Kops setup, and I don't have the encryption rest for the volumes. And I would love to turn this on, but the documentation says you need a new cluster essentially, which I can do, but I'm wondering if it's actually possible to do without getting a new cluster. And yeah, so I have no idea.
And you're referring to the EBS level encryption, not the API server level encryption, right?
Exactly, because Europe has this crazy, not crazy actually. I will spell the 4 magic words, letters, GDPR, where we need to have a bunch of ticks, and one of them is encryption and rest for essentially everything. So there is not much inside, but still, it's better to have it.
Yes, I think we have a similar issue, which is that I don't think we can resize currently the disks either, because I think it's the problem. The problem is even though we could resize the volumes, we wouldn't actually resize the file systems. I don't know whether we're able to turn on an encryption on an existing EBS volume I don't know whether AWS allows us to do that.
No, I don't think so. I think you have to create a different volume, but yeah. I'm not sure how Kops would react with that.
I mean, if so Kops uses the tags. So if you were to like seamlessly swap in the correct volumes, like swap in new volumes with the same tags that were encrypted under the scenes, and you copied the files over or restored from a snapshot, I guess that would be okay. It's pretty risky. That's where I think. Another thing on my list is adding the functionality to etcd manager to actually restore. So etcd manager includes a backup, and actually I think if you're running a more recent version of Kops, we actually are backing it up now anyway. We just don't offer yet the functionality to restore from a backup. So this would effectively be probably the easiest way would be to do a new cluster and restore from a backup, but I don't know whether you could also just delete your volumes and restore from a backup. Or hide volumes, untag your volumes and restore from the backup.
That's all right. I mean, I'll figure it out. I can try it out. I just wanted to know if someone already did that. Because for example, for backups, I mean, it's not the perfect solution, but AWS now has this EBS volumes lifecycle manager. I'm not sure if you ever look. So they do automatic snapshot for all the EBS volumes essentially every 12 hours or so, which is not great, but good enough to restore in case someone really blows up. And you don't need anything running. It's just they do it for you, and they have the policy like, okay, give me only, I don't know, keep 10 volumes or 10 snapshots, no more than that, which is actually quite cool.
Yeah, it's actually a good feature, right? Like 12 hours gets you out of a lot of the, like, when you really break it, it takes you a while to figure out exactly what went wrong. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this or has experience with this. Anyone on the call have experience or no? Yeah. Well, I will try to see if we can get anything into etcd manager to help, but it will likely be still pretty disruptive.
Okay, that works. All right, then I'll go with the next, such that we save a little bit of time. So I guess last time we discussed the roadmap for the next, for 1.11, 1.12, or something like that. And we talk about add-on. And I was trying to have a look at the open issues, and I'm kind of a little bit confused of what the current status of add-on is, because there is this channel tool, which is kind of hidden, and then the add-ons that go in the manifest that gets applied. So I'm not sure if someone can summarize like what would be the work to do, because currently, yeah, I'm not using at all add-ons. I have my manifests that let's say complement the Kops installation, and I just apply them as kubectl apply with a tool that I have and stuff like that. But it would be great if I could just integrate this with the normal Kops management. Yes,
I am. This is actually what I'm working on in like a Google right now is trying to figure out the strategy for add-ons sort of in general. I am sadly unable to share the findings right now. I don't think they're incredibly surprising to anyone, but I'm just waiting to we're working through the approvals on all of that. I don't think anyone will be. I mean, essentially the idea is basically to put it, particularly for Kops, to make sure that we're able to apply add-ons that live in something like our channels today, rather than living in the code. Trying to figure out how that how we don't sort of forcibly update everyone's clusters when we push a new version into the channel, because you also want some control over that. So today, with just pushing something into pushing a new image into the channel doesn't automatically update everyone, or does even on a Kops update, you have to do a Kops upgrade to sort of pick that up automatically. Any new clusters get it if you don't specify. It changes the defaults, but it doesn't change existing clusters. So we need some way to avoid that. It sounds like what you're asking for is more just the ability to have a set of manifests that are automatically applied.
Yeah, or better, right? Because if you have add-ons, I assume there should be also some tests, integrated tests with the current version. So maybe there might be some inconsistencies. The thing is, currently what I have is really, so I know that it works because I kind of know the stuff I'm installing and the ecosystem that there is around. But it's really on me, right? Knowing it. And I guess also for users of Kops, it would be cool to say, I don't know, the add-on that does this thing is being tested, and I kind of trust. And when there is an update, I will get the update and all these kind of things. And I don't have to follow all the development, or I don't know, Prometheus or whatever it could be.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any ideas they would like to share, as I'm sort of boxed in here.
All the advice that I have, it's just noob advice, is just a Slack channel where you just subscribe to all the RSS feeds and just eat that pain. But that's kind of what I've got going on personally. Sorry.
That's, I mean, it's that is the current best practice, and it is a bit it's a lot of work, right? I mean, that's hard work, and I think it'd be great to. Well, we'll still have yes, it would be great to not have to make that more easy. I think that would be nice.
That's pretty much what I do as well, if it's helpful.
All right, good enough. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a big thing for Kops. We feel the pain quite badly because today we do have some add-ons that are managed, and they are baked Calico or Weave and Flannel and I think CoreDNS, and they are baked into Kops. So whenever we see a new update, we have to, in theory, update Kops and try to get it out to the user base. And we have a mechanism for forcing an update, but that's pretty aggressive. And we have a sort of softer mechanism to tell you that a new version is available, but it's not. It's a pretty convoluted way of doing a version bump on Calico, right? Doing a whole new release of Kops is slightly overkill for that. Yeah, I'm hoping to be able to share something soon, which I don't think will surprise anyone. So it shouldn't be too much more. And this is not anyone else is also free to work on this and propose things just because but yeah. And if anyone wants to talk to me privately, I can probably share some more stuff in detail if anyone has any work in progress that they're thinking about or something like that. Elena, I think you're going to bump a couple of PRs, which is great. And
yeah.
One of them I know about, but one of them I don't know. Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. The other one, yes. The other, yes. Sorry.
Cool. No, I just, we talked about this maybe a month ago or 6 weeks ago or something. So I don't know. I think the one I'm mostly interested in is the Spotinst as a new cloud provider. I would love to be able to get that merged in so I can use newer features that I'm interested in newer versions of Kubernetes. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just kind of 2 versions behind right now, and I'd like to meet you in the future.
Okay, cool. Yes, and I will certainly, yeah, dig into that, figure out what we need, and as you say, like communicate on that PR and let Spotinst. I think it's Spotinst that's maintaining that PR, right? And then let them address any issues, and hopefully we can get it. Thank you for the continued bumping.
Thank you. Actually, sorry, I didn't put it on the agenda. I had a quick philosophical question about the load balancer that sits in front of the Kube API server. I'm just out of curiosity. I realize it's like deeply embedded in the code. There's like a package directory, like a few different models. And it describes like how different vendors implement that API server. And the load balancer for the API server. Like I'm interested in adding some options for like AWS. Like this load balancer comes configured without connection draining, for instance. And so it's easy enough to like have like an API call, make an API call to this load balancer once it's created. But I would like to have like everything that I care about in that load balancer kind of get configured kind of auto-magically. So I don't know if that's like, I don't know if like node draining is like so vendor specific that you wouldn't want to open that option up in like the cluster spec. But I was just wondering if that's like, should I open a feature or should I just kind of like leave that alone?
Right. Yeah. I mean, definitely open a feature. I think connection draining, right? Yeah. Connection draining.
Yeah, that's right.
It's pretty, it's pretty generic across the idea. The idea is certainly generic. I think it's okay to have flags which not all providers implement. We try to not use the words. We try to use generic language. So if it's like instead of like calling it an ELB, we'll call it like a load balancer. But this like connection draining is great. I think the concern is whether we would turn it on for everyone. Like, is it just an omission? Like, is it a bug effectively that we haven't turned it on, or is it that some people might? Do we risk breaking people by?
I think if we just like had that option enabled and just like default to false, just like so, like I don't know what the behavior is in AWS. Like I haven't built like a vanilla load balancer in a while. Like, but I think that doesn't come configured. But as long as like nothing surprising happens by default, and then for those who care can turn it on, that's probably the way to go.
That makes sense. And I think there's that would be a great feature to open as a feature request, and then if you want to work on it, that would be great as well. And I'm happy to like give you pointers if you want to. We have there's a type there's like a structure which is dedicated for the load balancer of the API, if I recall correctly. So yes, as you say, we would add a field. Defaulting to false is the easy choice, so people could just opt in to connection draining, and then we'd have to map it into the like ELB call. But that seems like a good idea. Great idea.
Dope. I'll create a feature and I volunteer to work on it slowly but surely in the background.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah, and
awesome.
Yeah, do that, and yes, then we can collaborate more on that. Like hammer out the design such as it is and make sure it's all good. And if anyone else has any thoughts, then they can chime in about like gotchas or something. But it sounds like just a win. So
cool. Thanks.
Great. One more thing on the agenda, unless anyone wants to add anything. Mike, test infra for NVMe.
Yeah, so I was poking around our tests the other day when a bunch of stuff was failing. Apparently, it was like an upstream Nginx thing, couldn't build, so everything broke, I think. And within a few hours, things just started working again. But I was looking at test infra, and I noticed our NVMe test has been failing for a long time for two reasons. One, because we added a check that if the image doesn't include the word stretch, I think we throw an error or something, or a warning at least. And I think the warning was blocking the test. But also, basically the image, we're not using the stretch image. So I was thinking in the meantime, until we do make that the default or some other way in channels, we just force the image in there. Because I thought better to test something than nothing right now.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think, I can't remember I actually thought it was you that added the stretch thing. Maybe who was it that added the stretch test then?
I LGTM'd it. Maybe it might have been Rodrigo or someone like that.
Okay, but yes, the intention was to try to help people like get the correct image and sort of take steps towards like automatically choosing the correct image. But yeah, thank you for fixing the test. I'll make sure that we LGTM them. I think actually this is another topic. I think in general we should probably switch to a stretch image by default in. Honestly, it's a little late for 111 because we're sort of behind already. Like, I don't know, 112 or 113 type timeframes. It's not a huge pain to continue building the Jesse image for a while, but eventually they're going to stop. Like Debian is going to stop security updates for it. So eventually we want to get everyone onto Stretch anyway.
Yeah, and there's quite a few issues right now. A lot of people posting about, like, someone has an open PR about switching us over to Stretch in 111. So I kind of proposed to them maybe Alpha Channel goes Stretch. I don't know. I mean, I agree it's a little aggressive for 111, but
I mean, Alpha is supposed to go like Alpha is supposed to be like the staging ground for stable. So I'd rather get 111 out fast so we can get onto the 112 train and have that out because as always we are behind. And
right.
I don't know.
Is there any reason not to just use the official Debian AMI for that?
I'm trying to recall. We are much closer to the official Debian AMI, so I'm trying to recall exactly what the differences are, but I don't think the differences are substantial. I think now it's mostly about pre-installation of software. So the way Kops works, like the way NodeUp works, right? If software isn't installed, it will go install it, but like downloading some of that software, like downloading the correct version of Docker can actually be pretty slow.
Okay. Because I have a cluster that's running with like the latest version, because they pushed like 3 new versions in like the last week, like fixing all of those fragment stack bugs.
We have one coming, and I'm sure we'll have another one weekly, as it were. I see the there's that January's January's issue like has a checker, and I think we're now passing the first 3, but they keep adding more tests for the latest one, so we're now no longer passing it. But I don't know if we will ever catch up on that front. I feel like we're going to catch up on the Kubernetes front eventually, but we will never fully finish the Intel updates. But
okay, so the main issue is just it's slower because it has to download the software.
As I understand it, there were more serious issues with Jesse where we wanted a newer kernel. A newer kernel behaved better. But yes, I think there's some syscuddles that were like some kernel flags that we changed, but I think they're mostly convenience. I will double check that. But it's a good thing to check on the thing we talked about initially with the R5 instances, whether the official Debian stretch image does correctly resize that NVMe root volume.
You the R5Ds?
I don't know.
I think so. I think like the 5 series have like there's like the R5s and then there's R5.D, I think, which is the NVMe volumes.
Okay, but I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, this happens as well. Even if it's not the local NVMe volumes, these instance types, when they mount a remote EBS, even if it's a GP2, they mount it as an NVMe volume. So it's no longer like dev/xVDA. It's all NVMe N0P1 whatever.
Yeah, so if the official Debian stretch image does that, then it's a great opportunity to that's a simpler update for us. So that would be I'll check that as well. But if anyone else is able to check that, that'd be wonderful. But it would be. I think it would be good to get onto the official Debian stretch image or Debian image. That would be nice, but I am not entirely sure what our differences are right now. But yeah, that would be good, I think. I don't know how people feel about moving to stretch at some future milestone, be it 112, 113, 111. Stretch by default, I should say.
I think it might be worth phrasing it as, is there anyone really opposed to it? Because I think a lot of people have been pushing for it. So is anyone on the call really opposed to moving towards stretch more aggressively? All right.
Jason Price, I know you were in the past wanted clarity on the upgrade. I don't know if you're still on the call.
I am. I'm chewing.
But yeah, I mean, I think we have to tell people we certainly should communicate the change when we make it and allow people an option to stick with Jesse or to opt into Jesse.
So I'm playing with this right now, and for giggles, I attempted to launch with Ubuntu 18.04, and in my first experiment with it just flat failed. So
yeah, that won't work.
Yeah.
You have to forcibly switch over to a different Docker version because 18.04 doesn't include the Docker that we do right now.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, so I actually opened a PR. If you go search for Docker and whatever the code, Xenial, no, whatever the Ubuntu code is for 18.04. Bionic, yeah. Basically, if you force that as the image and then you change the Docker version within your manifest to be whatever is listed in the PR, then you can test 18.04.
Okay,
but I don't know if it works. I just know that it got past the Docker step.
Now we're in the process of changing up all of this stuff because for various reasons we need to get north of Jesse. But so I have no opposition. It just absolutely needs to be telegraphed as in 111 stretch will be the default and Jesse will be an optional use, and in 112 it'll be deprecated entirely or something shaped kind of like that. It needs to be telegraphed now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I propose that we leave it as is for 111, or well, we'll see. But I propose we leave it as is for 111, make stretch the default for 112, don't deprecate, and then don't deprecate Jesse yet, and sort of see. Like, I think I'm still building 1.6 or 1.7 images, and it really doesn't make a huge difference to me. So it's not a big deal to keep building them for a while, but certainly yes, to see what the support policy is on Jesse, and we should deprecate it because people really should be using stretch eventually, but yes, not an imminent deprecation, but certainly I think I would like to move to stretch as the default. I think that makes a ton of sense.
There is actually one thing. So I had one problem solved by moving to stretch, which is that on the, at least on one of the recent Jesse images, I was installing MD80M, and it has a setup hook when you apt-get it, where the default debconf setting is that it's an interactive setup hook, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to change that setting. And it's a non-interactive setting on stretch, so that may just be something that should be changed in the Jesse image, but for what it's worth.
How are you installing the package?
It was, I can find the code real quick.
If you're running a command, there is a trick to, there is an environment variable that you can set, but yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I mean, I remember looking for, well, actually, I think I remember finding it.
Debian front end, I think. Debian _ front end.
I think you're right. It's been a while.
Debian front end non-interactive is supposed to do it.
Yeah, I tried setting that. It didn't fix it.
There is another one on top, which is there are some things. Sometimes it will still ask you for a flag, and you can set a canned response file. But yeah, that might be a good one to. Yes, it'd be good to That's a good reason to run Jesse as well. To run Stretch as well, excuse me.
Yeah, so it just worked on Stretch. It was just apt-get -y install md8em. Yeah, and it was, popped up
What you can do, which we're doing right now, we take Justin's provided AMIs and we apply a bunch of CIS hardening guides and blah, blah, blah to them. And then we just use that AMI that we produce on top of what Justin's work was. So you can end run around that way as well.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
And then I brought up two other things real quick, two other PRs of mine. I have 3 open PRs, but one of them is Bazel updates, which Justin, you already said you were up for. I just keep having to rebase it every time we have changes. I just rebased both these PRs actually. So I don't know if there's any discussion on that, but we did want to get the Bazel updates. There's a newer version of some of this stuff, but I didn't push to that because you actually have to update your Bazel locally. So I thought this would get us up to date, and then we could do that later. And then unless there's any comments on that. Okay. And then the second one is machine type generator. So we talked about this a bit ago, actually. We had one issue with basically every time I spot check a few of the machine types that we have hard coded, a few are wrong here and there, and we constantly get PRs for this stuff, and they're not in a good order. So I made a generator a while ago. I piped it in, it hard generated to the file that we currently have. And last week we talked about moving that into a channels-like system where it gets pulled down. So I was just going to propose that as a step, like unless other people are opposed to it, we start with this, and then I was going to work on moving it to something that we store in the repo that we use like channels as a secondary step, so that to progress it along. But I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts.
I think that sounds great. I don't know if you've resolved the questionable licensing, or not questionable, the lack of licensing on that library you were using.
Yeah, I removed that library.
Okay. That's a good way to do it. And I know Seth Pollock. I don't know if you're on the call, Seth, but I think Seth was also working on this with you if you're interested in that.
Yeah, I've been looking into the exact same thing. But yeah, we could collaborate on that if you want, or you can do it.
Either way.
Yeah, but if you can add one thing to that, just the have I guess for now hard coded map of the ENI information, so we could figure out the max pods for that.
Oh yeah. All right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, totally.
Or that could be a way you guys can divide the work if you'd like, right, Seth? Maybe, I don't know, a suggestion.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to help wherever you need me.
I'll leave it up to in both of your capable hands, or with your capable hands. That's right.
Cool. Sounds good. I'll ping you, Seth. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
I don't know if anyone else has anything else on the agenda. Otherwise, I wish everyone a wonderful weekend, possibly holiday weekend, depending on where in the world you are.
Thank you, Justin.
All right. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.